Hey there, everyone. Welcome to the show tonight. Should be a pretty fun show tonight. We're going to talk about, well, the Civil War aspect, maybe not so fun, but we are going to talk about that, what it might entail, how likely is a situation like that. And then we're going to talk about, which is the fun part, a little bit about multi-purpose items, quite a bit actually, multi-purpose items that are kind of low cost. And things that we can use for a lot of different things. Some things that we consider specifically prepping supplies. Some things that kind of aren't, but there are just so many of them. This is when we do this section. I'd love to have the audience participate a little bit. I've got a list of about 30 of them, but honestly, there are hundreds and hundreds of just different supplies and stuff like that. So at any rate, before we get into the show, let me see if I can pull this stuff up. Local Prepper's in the chat. What's going on, Local Prepper? Hey, and we are going to be, it's already 8 p.m. Yeah. I'm going to get a hold of Local Prepper, and we may do a show here in the near future too, whether it's on his channel or my channel, because the last show we did was just a blast. Mayhem Country Living's in here, just another guy that had a blast on his show. Joshua Cooks and Eats, what's going on? And Batshite Crazy, how you doing, everyone? But at any rate, like I said, I want to talk about some of these aspects of Civil War and some of these, multi-purpose items. I did a poll over here on YouTube and in the Facebook group about what you guys, I think I listed 4 options about what you guys wanted me to do the live stream on. And these 2 were the top. So I think in the future, I'm going to probably do this from time to time as well, because I'd rather get your pulse on what you want to hear about rather than me thinking about something that I think is pretty cool. And you guys are kind of like, oh yeah, this might be okay. So just very cool that it was overwhelming response for these 2. So at any rate, with the Civil War 2.0 thing, I found an article, or I saw an article from Ask a Prepper that goes over basically the same things that I wanted to talk about anyway, the bullet points that I had, a few of them anyway. They don't go into as much as detail as I want to. There's a lot of different aspects of this that you just can't get in one article. But I did want to go over some of their bullet points. And I think before we even get into what you should do in the event of a, not civil unrest, I guess civil unrest would be the start of it, but a civil war, I want to talk about, kind of how likely is something like that to happen. And I know right now everyone is, we're all basically at each other's throats, right? Where everybody, because I think it's because of social media, all these different social media platforms, the internet in general, they don't have to go outside of their bubble anymore. So they get this idea that the whole world sort of believes the things that they believe, or they reinforce their narrative, their thought process. And I think that sort of puts people on one side or the other for the most part. Another thing that goes into all of that, as far as how people are just at fever pitch, is politicians, the media, they play this stuff up too. So it really does seem like everybody is sort of just at fever pitch and at each other's throats more than it's ever been. It certainly is more than it's ever been in my life, but I don't know that it's more than it was during the Civil War. Heck, even the 70s. I don't know. I was barely born in the 70s. I was too busy playing with Tonka toys and, stuff like that in the 70s to worry about gas prices, and even the 60s and all the protests that were going on then. Seems to be a lot of correlation between what's happening now and what happened then as far as the intensity and all of that. But it doesn't mean that something like that isn't, at a possibility. But I just don't see it as something that, is going to kick off in the next year or so. I think with a civil war, that type of situation, we're probably going to have a little bit of time. You're going to see the buildup. And right now, we may be in that buildup right now, so to speak. but I don't think we're to the point where it could kick off in a month or two. I think it takes a lot for people to get so uncomfortable that they're willing to go to that extreme, to that civil war aspect where there really is no other choice but to go that route. Now, I do think there are a couple things, at least from my perspective, that would kick that off, and that's the whole Second Amendment thing. If they decided to go all out and ban weapons, period, firearms, I think that would make a lot of people, reach that point of, okay, there's nothing we can do. I have to do something about this now. I'm sure on the other side of the aisle, there's also things that would be that. Joshua said, born in 93. Yeah, I remember 93. Seems like yesterday. I was living the prime of my life in 93, 20 years old, and living the life. Actually just turned 21 in 93. So yeah, that was a great year. That was the year that's one of the reasons why I don't drink anymore. I'll just say it that way. But at any rate, going back to this, I think there are some things that would kick that off, but I don't think we're quite there yet. Of course, with all these banks collapsing and finances, that is something that could, catapult people into that thought process, that mindset of there's, what else can we do? There's nothing to do. And I think that's what it would take, something like that to happen, to get people to that point to where a civil war would be some sort of likely situation. And again, I think as preppers, there's not a lot of disaster scenarios and things that we have, advance warning on. Some of these just come at us quick, and we've got to be ready and be able to, bugging out, things like that. We got to be able to do it at a moment's notice. Tornadoes and hurricanes, you have a little bit of advance warning. Earthquakes, things like that, you really don't. Nuclear weapons, not a whole lot of advance warning. Situation like this, I think we probably we'd see it coming for months, if not even over a year. Things building up, and our intensity as preppers sort of going, we're going to be getting into this pretty soon. We better do this, you better do that. And we're going to go through a few of those things that you better be doing. But I do think it's something that, while we are sort of at each other's throats and there's sort of little things that happen here and there, there's not anything that would reach this level, not anything that would kick off something this level yet. But like I said, it's, there's the banking crisis, there's the financial situations, there's a lot of different things that really make me hesitate, that never say never type thing. I'm not going to say it's going to be a couple years away because, we just don't know. Okay, so what I do think, before we move on to how to prepare for this, what I do think is probably more likely, and again, not sure exactly how likely, but a war between nations, whether that be China, Taiwan, and then how do we react to that? Russia, if they start throwing nukes at Ukraine, how does the UN react? How do we react? I think something like that could be a bigger possibility, although I don't see that as being something that would affect us here at home. But again, never say never, and you just never know how quickly something like that escalates or what happens with that. But I see that as a bigger likelihood than a civil war happening here in the United States. And it would look a whole lot different than the original Civil War did, I think, because the original Civil War, you think back to the weapons and, how everything unfolded. I think the weapons we have these days, I think it would be a whole lot different. You look at how the things that are going on in Ukraine, that's sort of the same sort of disaster crisis type situation you'd be seeing, other than it's not their government going after them. It's another government coming after their government, and they're sort of stuck in the middle. But it would be a similar situation to that. The Civil War, the first Civil War, was basically the government going after the South for, one reason or another. So you can call it justified, whether it's the slavery, which I think was justified, or the states' rights. The government decided that they wanted to do this against the people. So it was the people against the government. And back then, the weapons were all relatively the same across the board. These days, I just don't know. The weapons are a whole lot different. So I just don't know how it would be a whole lot different. I'll just put it that way. And we really don't have any idea. But I've heard people also talk about how the law enforcement, the military, they wouldn't back these guys. This article that I'm going to talk about as far as how to prepare for a civil war, the first things you need to do, there was one of the comments in there talking about how the military wouldn't do that, law enforcement wouldn't do that. And I agree. There are, aspects, there are some of them in there that would say, men and women in there that lean more towards the conservative side or the Second Amendment side or small government side, whatever that is, that would say, no, I'm not doing this. I'm going to fight for the other side. And I'm sure that happened in the first Civil War as well. But we saw during the pandemic just how these law enforcement agencies, some of these officers, especially you think back down to Australia, the insane draconian lockdown crap they had going on down there. Those police officers were brutal to the people that were just out there protesting, not really, from what I've seen, not really doing a whole lot wrong, just voicing their opinions, knocking on people's doors, busting in people's houses. I mean, doing things like that. So to assume that law enforcement, that military isn't going to be a huge factor in it, and the technology as well that they possess isn't going to be a huge factor in it, I think is sort of misleading yourself and thinking that everything is going to be good as soon as those guys join your side, because you just never know how all that's going to turn out. So at any rate, there's just a lot of things, and this is one of those disaster situations, disaster scenarios. It could unfold in a number of different ways, a lot of moving parts. So it's just hard to say one way or the other exactly how this is going to unfold. But like I said, we should have a little bit of time before it does escalate to that situation. Now, that may mean pockets all over the place, and that could be one of those indicators, pockets in large cities, or maybe California is mad at Texas, or New Mexico's mad at Texas, or somebody along those lines, and they start squabbling back and forth, and that leads to something else. Other states that get involved, we got Texas's back, or we've got California's back, things like that, where it could, that stuff could start picking up steam. And how the government loves to take sides with all this stuff. So how, where does that all go? Where does that all lead? Because on its face, Texas against California, although I don't know, there's some pretty, I guess there's some pretty crazy gangs down in Texas too, but just on its face, Texas against California, I kind of have my feeling how I know how that would turn out. But do you think the federal government would allow Texas to go in there and just bully? I don't think so, especially with, the ties, how much California depends on the federal government. But at any rate, I think it's just interesting. Tiger said here, I'm old. Let me pull up a couple comments before I get into this. The what to do. Tiger says, I'm old and I'll fight for our people, but never the government. Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of people, especially us, feel that way. One more here. Joshua said, I'm going to fight for my home state of Louisiana. That's sort of what a lot of people did in the first Civil War too. I know Robert E. Lee gets a hard time about being racist and all that stuff, but he had a choice. And it's something you don't hear about a lot on the mainstream media and all that. And, I don't know, maybe he was a racist, I don't know, but he had a choice and he chose to fight for his state. And that's what he did. And therefore was labeled what he's labeled. Again, a lot of nuance to all that. So I'm not going to get into all that. But yeah, I think, my personal position, Colorado, I love this state. I love the people in it for the most part, outside of this, the big cities. But I don't know that I have the love for this state that I used to have. Now, that's not to say that I wouldn't stay here and fight for it. I would if it was against the government, the federal government, or overreach or anything like that. But it's not the same state that I grew up knowing and loving, and it's sort of changing now. Hopefully it doesn't go too far while I'm still alive, but I've got no faith. I call it Little California these days. Somebody also made a comment in the YouTube video, and I'm trying to remember what it was, talking about, let me see if I can pull it up here. I'm not going to be able to pull it up. I'm just going to, if I remember it later, I'll talk about it. But it was a good comment about, like, I think it was law enforcement or something like that. Good comment about how things would unfold. You can look at that, that poll that I put up. You can look at that below that poll where everybody voted on what videos to do. So let's go ahead and get into, I've got this article here, and I wanted to just talk about a couple of the bullet points in here. And in this article, this is basically the first part of this is basically everything that I just talked about. How likely is it? What could happen? All of those things. But he's got some bullet points in here that I wanted to go over. And the first one here is secure your family. Sorry, I had to cough there. When the bullets start flying, the priority will be your security and safety. After that, you should ensure your family is safe and secure. Kind of two different ways of saying the same thing. We should all have a contingency plan in place in the event of a disaster that results in our family being separated without communication. We should have a plan that results in our family not being separated, and communication is a big part of that. That is one of those things that, like I said, we've got plenty of time to prepare. We've got plenty of time leading up to something like this. But in that situation, I don't know what that time frame looks like, because it could be let's just assume that there is an ongoing Civil War type situation. Your neighborhood, your county, whatever, could be absolutely fine, unaffected for the most part throughout this situation. But you never really know when troops or groups decide that where you live, your neighborhood has basically become the battlefront. And then what do you do at that point? If things are picking up, to the point where you can still sort of live your daily life, kids are still going to school, you may still have to go to work or be able to go to work, or maybe you're out doing things to make money. You never know where you're going to be, where your family members are going to be at any given time. And this, not only does this apply to, a Civil War type setting, but it applies to a lot of different disaster scenarios that we face as preppers. So getting your family together, getting everybody on the same page is crucial for any type of situation. Communications in some sort of Civil War or war type environment in general are going to be really tough. I mean, we talk about, as preppers, the ham radio and making sure you get your license or not get your license because it's not going to matter in a situation like that. It may. I mean, you just don't know. But there's also going to be, again, this is where that technology comes in. Communications may become illegal to use those airwaves and things. The government does crap like that all the time, makes this or that illegal whenever they feel it's a national need or emergency need. Sort of like, when they made owning gold, they outlawed that. Same thing could go for your supplies and stuff, which we're going to talk about here in a minute, but they could outlaw these types of things. So communications isn't just one of these real simple type situations where, hey, I've got my ham radio or I've got an FRS, we're going to be fine. You've got other people that may be listening in on those channels. So if you're like most of us and you have a really basic knowledge of ham radio, or FRS, because it's only just a few different channels and it's easy to use. If you've got that basic knowledge, that could become, you're going to be one of those easy targets, I suppose, in a situation like that. Maybe there's a group of bad guys that, rather than just the actual military, that will be able to triangulate your position and figure out who and where you are and figure out where the best place to get supplies are. Maybe that's, by using that simple ham radio communication, transmitting things like that, you could be setting yourself up. Now, with that too, we all know that in wartime the rules sort of go out the window. So just because it may be this side or that side that come from, decide to set up the front lines right in your backyard or whatever it is, use your house as an outpost or something. There are going to be those outside, those people with bad intentions, those people with less than ideal morals, things like that, that are going to be out there as well. So you really have to pay attention to that. I was just watching a movie the other day with Michael J. Fox, Casualties of War, I think it was, Vietnam movie. Actually, any Vietnam movie you watch, you see how in a wartime situation, some of the rules kind of go out the window and things get done and don't get sort of prosecuted, I suppose, the same way they normally would. So in a situation like that, I think you might have to think about that type of situation. Mayhem said in here, there will be pockets of violence and pockets of no apparent change, in my opinion. Yeah, I think so. It's just really hard to tell. It's a matter of where and when. What is necessary for the fight? What is necessary to gain ground and things like that? Because that is one of the things that would be similar to the first Civil War. Is the fact that it would be a ground war. It's about it's about supply lines. It's about taking ground. It's about all those things that you think about. We think about the classical way we think about war. The difference, like I said, would be the military and the capabilities of the United States government and their willingness to do things these days that maybe they wouldn't have a while ago, but maybe they would have. Maybe that's just my, living in this time. So Japheth said, freedom isn't free. Yeah. So communications and securing your family. I think communications, that's one we need to think about as far as not necessarily the ham radio and things like that. Maybe receiving on ham radio, so you're gathering that information. Maybe that shortwave radio, as long as those aren't jammed and those are still functional. Receiving that information, I think, is going to be more beneficial than actually sending a signal out and letting everybody know where you are. That being said, we will need to, if our family is separated or becomes separated. I mean, it could be when things kick off. It could be in the middle of something like we were just talking about with, something happening and all of a sudden you've got to maybe bug out, which we're going to go into a little bit here too, or your family gets separated and you've got to get everybody back together. So you've got to have a plan in place, and that's the communication now or prior to that you need to have, that this is our meeting place. This is what we are going to do. This is how we are going to get a hold of each other. Who knows? Cell phones may still be functioning. I mean, I honestly, I don't have any idea. I wouldn't count on it, but you never know. Asymmetrical warfare, Mayhem said. Yeah, absolutely. So securing your family, getting all that stuff in place. Another thing that goes into that before I move on to the other one is emergency records. I always talk about emergency binders all the time, having physical copies of all the important things that you would need, pictures especially, because if you do get separated, you are going to be out walking around searching, and you need something to say, hey, this is the person that I'm looking for. Have you seen this person or that person? So pictures are highly important in a situation like that. And the physical copies, even though, you probably could just pull up your phone and say, hey man, have you seen this person? The battery's dead. There's nothing you can do. And if you're taking your phone around in a situation like that, you're probably not going to have a phone for very long anyway. So at any rate, securing your family is a really important one. The next one is supply security. And I think this one, again, like I talked about in the beginning, this one is not just from marauders, but from the forces themselves, one side or the other. Could be your forces, the forces that you side with, coming and saying, hey, we need to take this stuff, or, we need to park it in your house here for a while, and we're going to eat all your food and do this stuff. So in this article right here, they talk about our food and other supplies should already be secure, but you must ensure that they're well hidden during the Civil War. One universal aspect of war is that armies march on their stomachs. Therefore, all factions fighting against each other will need food, water, medical supplies, and ammo. And this is one of those things that, yes, you do have to worry about neighbors, because you think about a situation like this, you're talking about a few different disaster scenarios all rolled into one, right? The financial situation where you probably don't have a job, or maybe you don't have a job, the war aspect of it. So you've got maybe not just your neighbors to worry about, or people coming into your city. Tiger said guerrilla warfare, yeah. But you've also got the troops like they were talking about. And this just reminded me what the comment was on YouTube, because they were commenting on how people will be going from cities out to the areas, whether it's suburbs or rural, and they will be going out there to try to either just get away from things or try to get stuff. And I say all the time is I'm not so sure how far people are going to come out into the suburb or into a rural area. But at the same time, this is a really good comment, because that it would be if everything is completely run dry, or if everything is really dangerous in the city to even stay there. You're talking, talk about guerrilla warfare in the city. Maybe they would. Maybe they would go out there. And in that comment, they were talking about the bad part of that is that they bring their ideals and their, how they think and all that with them. So you've got to deal with that. A lot of people from the city sort of look down on, and I'm not saying everyone, but sort of look down on the flyover states, right? So anybody rural, really suburban, anything like that, they sort of look down on those people like they're better than, or smarter than, or, all of those different things. And again, not saying everybody, but they sort of do look down on those people. So when it comes to that, how does that all unfold? And I think that's a pretty interesting subject to dive down. I don't have time to do that tonight, but I think that is pretty interesting. But as far as your supplies, make sure that you're thinking about that if you are thinking about a Civil War thing. These are kind of like things to write down. I don't think these necessarily need to be done right now, but there are things to write down and just think about. And also, other disaster scenarios, like I said, that may be more immediate than something like this. But with this, I think it's just stuff to write down and make sure that when you do start seeing those signs, you start taking care of this stuff. But you think about troops rolling through. They're going to want, preppers. We are a gold mine. If we are transmitting on our ham radios or whatever, and we're talking to other preppers and we're talking about prepping, we are the ideal target. We've got all the stuff that these people are going to be looking for, whether you're talking about marauders or one side or the other of this war. And we've got the ammunition, we've got the fuel storage, we've got the food storage, right? We've got all of these things that just make us this perfect target for them to sort of run around. It makes you kind of wonder too about how, if the government does have a list of citizen supply depots around the country, if we're all on that little list right there. So. But we would be big targets, and and they'll probably go door to door, things like that. But if they do hear you, you're basically setting yourself up where they're going to be like, okay, we've got to make it over to this place. We'll go through this neighborhood first, because I know that these people are going to, we're at least going to get something from this house right here. And I'm sure there's stuff in the neighborhood as well. Angela, what's going on? Yeah, Angela said preppers are resupply points. Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think we absolutely would be in a situation like that, as well as, other situations. But this is more so as far as them knowing where we are and getting our communications. I'm more concerned about the governments and the lists and the things like that. If the government is involved in some sort of large-scale disaster situation, heck, it could be an earthquake, something like that decimates a town, and they need supplies and resources. And I don't know, totally hypothetical. Maybe I'm just out of my mind. Maybe my mistrust is just way over the top, but but that's one of those things. So make sure. I've talked about putting a sort of not a bunker or anything like that, but just an underground storage place. I'm drawing a blank on what the hell it's called right now, for food and things like that, to where I could make it totally incognito. Nobody would even notice it. You can store stuff out there. A root cellar is what I'm trying to say here. You can store things down there. The temperature swings aren't going to affect it much. And if somebody were to roll through town, you've got certain things that are stuck out for them. And they're going to go through, they're going to rummage through that stuff. They're going to grab it. Maybe you've got a little bit of ammunition sitting on a shelf, maybe one of your guns or something like that, just to make it look like that they got everything they needed. But if you don't, and they do find out you're a prepper, or maybe they don't know beforehand, Brian, yeah, COVID cough? No, not this time. It's talking too damn much cough. But if you do have a lot of stuff around your house, you can bet that they are going to go through your house with a fine-tooth comb, knowing that you've got, Mayhem said we're all on the list, yeah. Knowing that you've got all of this stuff that they already found just on a first sweep, you know they're going through your house with a fine-tooth comb. So you could be left with nothing at all. So hence the cache locations, a root cellar, something like that. Things that where you can put these things, these supplies, whether it's ammunition, whether it's food, whether it's, water, all sorts of different things. You can put those things to where if they do come rolling through, they're not going to be able to take everything. And again, this isn't something that has to be done right now. You don't have to go hide a bunch of different caches in 14 places across the neighborhood or whatever. But I think in a situation where you did sort of get that tense feeling of, the potential of this popping off is getting pretty good. So I better get on the ball with all this stuff. With me, yeah. Brandon said here in the chat, you should definitely start a popular show about prepping. Good way to lay low. Yeah, that ship has sailed. I started this, and even knowing that when I started this was the thing that I had to come to grips with and say, hey, you know what? This is about the opposite of operational security as you can get. And I decided, you know what? I'm going to do it. So that is something that, there's a few YouTubers here in the audience too as well. So not the best way to go about your OPSEC and stuff. But like I've said before, though, if something were to kick off, and that's what we're going to talk about next here, I think it's next or the one after this. If something were to kick off, not so sure, depending on what the situation is, I'd be where I am right now. So, never take your phone to your cache, C-A-C-H-E, not cache, C-H-C-A, yeah, cache, C-A-S-H. All right, so... yeah, that's, you know what? I just thought about that. That's a very good point, actually, because with all the GPS tracking and basically it's a tracking device in our pocket, it's basically leading them right to, leaving a trail of breadcrumbs, basically leading them right to it. So very good point. These days, I don't even know, maybe it does. I don't even know if turning off your phone works anymore. I think it does for the most part, but with some of these apps and all of that, you just never know. One last thing on this before I move on. Brandon said here, but the flip side of that is it's by encouraging more preppers, more people become self-reliant. Yeah, and that's sort of why that was part of the thought process of doing this too, is because I like teaching about this stuff. When I first started this, it was real secretive, and there wasn't a lot of people talking about it. And most of the things that you would read online, there were like 4 or 5 websites. I think James Wesley Rawls was the first one to, first one that I read anyway. And then you got Glenn Tate, fiction authors, Chris Weatherman, those guys reading about those things. But a lot of people were talking about that operational security and all of those things. That was back before we were being tracked with everything, before we found out the NSA had every little bit of data on us. But it was a lot more, I guess, locked down back then than it is these days. And these days, it's more about preparing for everything you possibly can, whether that's job losses, personal doomsdays, natural disasters, not just the big ones. So it is cool to see that it is growing, but yes, the operational security aspect of it, that has been something that I've thought about in my preparedness plans, and I'm not spilling the beans on that here on the show either, but something I've thought about in our time. Lisa and I have thought about in our time doing this. And James Wesley Rawls, guarantee you, he's got his nice little bunker. I mean, he's probably set up good to go for nice old prepping group and all that stuff. So at any rate, let me pull that back down. I don't like how this website works. So some of the things that they're going to go for, or they would look for: weapons and ammunition, tactical gear. Again, all the stuff that we have on our preppers list, all the stuff that's on their list. Fuel, items and ingredients for explosives and incendiaries. That sort of makes sense. COVID cough again. I'm going to take a drink. Explosive and incendiaries. I suppose that makes sense. I don't know too much about how to put together all that stuff, but I'm sure they would. And maybe they do want that stuff. The fuel, we have our fuel storage in our garages and things like that. A lot of us do anyway. Maybe if you've got fuel in your car, they could just take the car or truck. Or they could just, these days you can't really siphon too well out of the newer cars, and I don't know that they'd take the time to do that anyway. Probably just pop a hole in your tank and fill up their little jugs or whatever they had and be on their way. Or maybe not on their way, they got to go through your house first, but fuel is one of those things as well. So, and then you don't have a car. So I don't know what the solution for that type of situation is, but we talked about this a little bit earlier, and this next one is comm security. And this is that, I'm not going to go through too much detail about this because we did talk about it, but it is that situation where you've got to be really careful. In this article, they talk about the first thing to become illegal during a civil war and other armed conflicts is radio communications, including amateur radio, because of the different sides. They don't want the different sides to be communicating, and they don't know who you are and who you're supporting and all that. So they talk about in this article having a good comms plan. Now, that's a little bit easier said than done. And honestly, if you're really into ham radio, or if you've got somebody in your group, or somebody that's really into it, they know the different tips and tricks. They know the different bands to use, all of these different things that would be useful in a situation like that, and how to kind of get around all the stuff that these other people are doing. But just as the typical amateur radio operator, or maybe it's just FRS or GMRS, it's not going to be that easy. So you can't just solely depend on that. Shortwave radio could be the same type of thing that gets cut off, and then what do you do? So you've got to do the whole word of mouth thing and figure out different ways to gather that information. The last one here I want to talk about, I hate this website doing that stuff, is a bug out plan. I'm just going to quit scrolling up on this damn thing. A bug out plan, I think, is one of those things like preppers we talk about all the time, where that's going to be my last resort, bugging out. I've got all my stuff here. I don't want to have to leave it behind. But this is one of those situations where this would be that last resort, right? This would be if the troops start rolling in, and you've got to, you're not going to be, if the firefight is coming from both sides, you're not going to be the one sitting right in the middle of all that in your house, maybe in your basement or whatever, in between those warring factions. Again, that's why a lot of people may leave cities in situations like this, because you're right in the middle of everything. So a bug out in a situation like this, I think is highly plausible, because you just don't know. Like Darren was saying earlier, Mayhem was saying, you just don't know. It could be completely silent for a year and a half or whatever in your area, and then all of a sudden, boom, here it comes. So a bug out plan, even if it's something that's temporary, I think would be something that absolutely needs to be thought about at the very least. So in here, he talks about the same thing I just did. The last thing any of us want to do is do smack dab in the middle of an all-out shooting war. The last thing we want to do is be in smack dab in the middle. So it becomes imperative to bug out when the warring factions start closing in on each other. Bugging out after a natural disaster is difficult enough, but in the fog and chaos of war, it'll be far more complex. It's one to bug out. It's not one bug out plan we need. It's several unique and independent routes and methods to escape the conflict. And there are a lot of different moving parts to this whole bug out plan, because we tend to think about, you hear don't bug out into the wilderness. You better have a place to go. Otherwise you are a refugee. In a situation like this, I think it doesn't matter. If you don't have a place to go, you're going anyway. So it does sort of help to think about different areas that may be around you where you could camp out unnoticed for a week or so. Maybe places even further than that, or have spots, down the line, maybe 5 miles, then 10 miles and 15 miles, that you can sort of move to and change spots if you need to. But if you don't have a bug out location, another thing Lisa and I, we used to have, and we're going to be doing it again. And again, without giving away too much information on this, I'm going to end up giving away, if you listen to enough of my podcast, you probably know about a lot of this stuff anyway, but we used to have a piece of land down in the San Luis Valley, way too far away. So we got rid of that. It was, I think it was about a half a tank of gas, and I believe it takes about 2.5 hours to get down there. Just too far away to go down there. One, because I didn't want to start building stuff and doing stuff down there and not be able to get down there on a regular basis, and maybe go down there at some point and have somebody living there, or have teenagers just ransacking the place. So we decided not to do that. But in a situation like this, you think about this, and it could be just that plot of land. It doesn't have to have anything on it, but you've got a plot of land that you own, even if it's just a 1/4 acre. You've got a plot of land that you own in a nice secluded spot that you could actually camp out, wait for all of these tensions to pass, wait for the front lines to move or whatever happens, and then go back and reclaim whatever's left of the things that you had. Tiger said here in the chat real quick, and then we'll move on. We're going to get to these. We're running a little bit long on this. I do want to get to these supplies though, but Dale, you said it faster than I could have typed or tracked. Yeah. I don't know exactly what that was, because all I've been doing is talking. I haven't really listened to myself while I'm doing all this stuff. I just jabber. So, at any rate, a bug out plan, getting your family together, all of those things are super important in a situation like this to at least think about. Granted, the Civil War, I don't see it coming down the pipe anytime soon. That doesn't mean that there won't be certain pockets or certain things that are sort of, similar as far as disaster scenarios that could happen, that would happen in a full-blown Civil War that we need to prepare for. But this, I just don't see happening right now. But this is why we think about all of these different things, to sort of get a leg up and think about what we would do here and there in this plan and that plan. And if we think about these different situations in a Civil War, the front lines moving towards your house, that could be the same thing as marauders coming to your house, or riots, mobs. I mean, all of those different things. There's just so many different scenarios that we need to be ready for. Some of them are defending our home. Some of them are, making sure we defend everything that's in our home. Some of them are getting the hell out of there, getting away from that home. And you've got to figure out what that best plan, that your best option is, your best plan of attack is. So, at any rate, I did go kind of long on this, and I've got a bunch of these supplies. And this one, I want, some audience participation as preppers. We've got hundreds of these ideas. So I want a little bit of participation in here. If you guys have any ideas, throw them up. I've got 30 of them. So I'm probably going to have the same as a lot of your comments in there, but throw them up in the chat. Goodness. All right. So let's get into the multi-use, low-cost prepping supplies. I believe most of these are pretty low cost. I don't have anything other than maybe like the fixed blade knives and multi-tools and a couple of the things like that. Those are a little expensive. But for the most part, these are all relatively inexpensive things that we all probably have laying around our house anyway. So instead of just blabbing about this for a half an hour, I've got a few slides here, and I've got 5 or 6 on each of these slides, and I will go through them. And if, like I said, if any of these spark anything in your mind, go ahead and put them in the comments, and I'll try to pull them up here on the screen. But the first one I've got here is, and I'll just go through all of these right here. You've got Ziploc bags. Ziploc bags are great for, with all the different things that we have in prepping, the different sizes of Ziploc bags are fantastic. Whether you're putting stuff in your bug out bag, maybe you're putting things in a cache. So you've got to, maybe you want to, put your ammunition in a Ziploc bag, or maybe even a firearm, something like that. A knife in a Ziploc bag. These are fantastic. There's a lot of different types. I've got a few, they're called lock sacks, which is basically, they are heavy duty Ziploc bags that can be, they're waterproof up to, I don't know, 50 feet, something like that. I used to make bug out bag first aid kits, and I put those in there. But I have one of those in my bug out bag. I've actually got a couple different sizes of those. Those are fantastic, but it doesn't have to be that super expensive bag. Brian said vacuum sealer. Yeah. Those vacuum seal bags are great too, especially when I was talking about like the survival cache, or even a bug out bag, things like that. Those things are fantastic. They're one step below the actual Mylar bag and sealing those up with an actual sealer, but they do work pretty well. I've got kind of on this. I've got Lisa and I have it's got the little round hole vacuum sealer and the bags that go with it, and you put it on there and it sucks all the air out. Those last, a month or two, and then after a while, you'll see that the air will get back in there. So I don't, if I want something to stay for 10, 15 years, I'm using the Mylar bag method. But vacuum sealers are fantastic. That's one step above just your regular plastic bag, Ziploc bag, because you can push all the air out of a Ziploc bag, but you're not going to get what a vacuum sealer does. And then vacuum sealer is not going to get what, the Mylar bags are going to get. You know what? Jesse put something on here that I don't have on my list, so I'm going to pull this up real quick. 5 and 6 gallon pails. Yeah, even the smaller ones too. I mentioned this the other day. Damn my knees. I've got a couple of 1 gallon pails that I'm starting to put whenever I break open a 5 gallon bucket of flour. I'm putting it in the 1 gallon pail. So all of those, yeah, multi-purpose as well. Toilets. I can't believe I didn't put that on this list. Very cool. Thank you, Jesse. I can't believe I didn't put that one on my list, because 5 gallon buckets are, preppers. I don't know the last time I threw away a 5 gallon bucket. As preppers, it's like one of those things, we just stack them together, put them in a corner, because you never know when we're going to need to use them. A lot of different things. The next one is yard bags, and trash bags in general, I suppose, but yard bags are really great. I've got one in my bug out bag, really heavy duty bags. I'm talking the kind that, you can throw tree branches and stuff in, and it's going to have a hard time splitting it open. Those types of bags, those can be used for just a whole bunch of different things. And I think that's one of the necessities of, if you're going to Walmart and you don't have any yard bags, go grab a box of them and get them, because you can use them as rain ponchos. They're big enough. You could use it as a makeshift rain poncho. You could cut it. You could make a shelter with it. Just so many different things. You could use it to collect water. You could use it to, actually, if you didn't have a bug out bag, you could actually carry stuff in there. Or maybe you did have a bug out bag and you were out collecting firewood or something, of that nature. Just so many different purposes for a yard bag that it's a necessity, I think, to have. And on this, when you're thinking about all these different purposes of all this, we could list 10 or 15 things a yard bag would be good for, or Ziploc bags. And the odds are, in the future, we're going to run across something like, hey, I never thought about this, but sure glad I have it for this. So again, very good, good point. Very good to have. The other thing I have on here is Flex Seal. And if you guys were listening to the show when I had Kevin on, he was talking about this Flex Seal, and I was pretty skeptical about it. And I still sort of am a little bit skeptical about it. But after listening to him, and because in that video, in the video with him, I was talking about this Flex Seal. I've got this commercial right here. I'm going to just play it. I was talking about when he was fixing a boat. He basically Flex sealed his boat, and the commercials to me seem like ShamWow commercials. And I'll just play this real quick, but it seems like ShamWow is like, I just not buying it. I've used it once and didn't have very good luck with it, but that could be me. I have heard from Kevin, he's had good luck with it. I've heard from other people that have had good luck with it. If you have in the chat, let me know if you have. But I want to show you the thing that made me sort of skeptical with all this. And this video, I'll just play this whole thing because it shows you a lot of the different multi-uses for it.
Stopping the toughest leaks while remaining completely flexible.
Turn this up.
Flex Seal is actually liquid rubber in a can. Flex Seal is perfect for all your home repairs and covers easily.
ShamWow!
A beautiful seal that will last a lifetime. Flex Seal is perfect for roof repair and basement leaks. It's like a handyman in a can. This super strong rubberized coating is unaffected by weather. In extreme heat or cold, Flex Seal keeps its hold. To show you the amazing sealing power of Flex Seal, we replaced the bottom of this boat with a screen door. We covered it in Flex Seal. After a day on the water, not only does it stay afloat, but the inside is completely dry.
I'm calling BS on that still. A day on the water. I want to see footage of him spending a day on the water with that boat. Or there's something more than just, screwing in a screen door to the bottom of the boat and then throwing some Flex Seal on it. They did some more to it than what they're saying in the video. Nonetheless, if it does work, then I think it is something that preppers should have, because you just never know. There's a lot of different uses for it that could be, even if it doesn't work like he's talking about right there, could be a better than nothing type thing. Kevin was talking about how he had on his van, he covered the top. He's got a little manifold on top of his van that he used Flex Seal on. I could see something like that. I've tried to do it on a PVC pipe before to seal a crack in a PVC pipe. Didn't work that well for me. Now, maybe that was user error. Maybe I didn't give it enough time to settle or set or whatever. Maybe it was just me. It wasn't like super high pressurized, so it should have been okay. But again, maybe I just didn't do it right. But it'd be a very cool tool to have. You sealing cracks in the windows, especially if the grid's down and you've got to seal up one little room and make sure it stays warm. That type of stuff is going to be pretty useful. You just never know. I am going to do a video and test this out on a couple things and see how it actually works. Maybe get one of my old tarps that has a rip in it, test that up and see if it makes it waterproof. Maybe I'll get an old pair of shoes and I'll do his little boat thing with my old pair of shoes and see how waterproof it makes them. Jesse said here in the chat real quick, and we'll get on this, a couple of the other things. I know I'm taking a long time here. On the plastic tote, blue Rubbermaid tote are the best. Lost a roof to a tornado, also had a house fire. Those totes hold up better than others. Yeah, very cool. On the Flex Seal thing, and we've got the plastic yard bags, and I believe on the next slide I've got Visqueen plastic rolls. If you had a tornado or a branch come through your roof or whatever, maybe you throw some of that Visqueen up and put some of that Flex Seal on your roof, and it's good enough. Who needs shingles, right? It's good enough to last you for a while. All right, so duct tape and paracord, both of these, I'm going to go through these real quick here, but both of them, we all know duct tape is you can do anything with duct tape. If you don't have this or you don't have that, use some duct tape. You got baling wire, duct tape and baling wire, and we can basically make anything. Cordage is just one of those things in preparedness. You can never have enough. Lisa, when we get hay bales, she collects all that twine. She's got a big feed bag just full of 2, 3 foot, 5 foot lengths of twine that honestly, when we pass away, the kids are probably just going to throw away because she just collects so much of it. But I've got hundreds of feet of paracord. I've got jute twine, just a whole bunch of different things. Cordage is always good to have you just never know which types of situations. Okay, so that's those right there. The next one I've got here is pantyhose, nylons, basically. And this is one maybe a lot of people don't think about, but you could use these for water filters. You could use these for a lot of different things, a face mask, I suppose, not just robbing a bank or anything like that. But if you didn't have like the bandanas that are on this list, you could use one of those for that. So I think nylons, you could use it to put stuff in to carry stuff. I mean, you could take a big long leg and make I don't know, put all your little prepping supply trinkets and throw it around your neck or whatever, tie the two ends off. And make something out of that. Just a lot of different things you could do with the nylons. But I don't know. I know Lisa doesn't have any. I don't know how many. It's not something I'm going out to go buy some nylons. I'll put it that way, just to have some laying around if I need them. But sort of along the same lines of that is bandanas. And Lisa wrote a post back when I first started, I think, about 100 uses for a bandana. Go to Survivalist Prepper. I didn't pull up the website today, but go to Survivalist Prepper and you'll see the article about 100 uses for a bandana. And there are, I mean, a lot of them, it is what it is, but there are some really useful. That's why we all try to keep one or a schmog or something like that in our bug out bags. Just a lot of different things you can do with them. Filtering, air, putting it over your face, concealment, all sorts of different things you can do with a bandana. Oh, Lisa said in the chat, she does have nylons. Okay. I didn't know that. Shows how much I pay attention, right? Bandanas and stuff like that. Just those multi-purpose items. You could even make cordage out of a bandana if you needed to. Just chop it up into little strips or something and do that. This roll of plastic right here is the Visqueen I was talking about, patching up a hole on the roof with your Flex Seal. These plastic rolls are big enough, you could just do a lot of things with them. If you're talking about pandemic type situation, viruses, you're sealing up windows. Even if you're just trying to keep heat inside the house, sealing up windows with this type of Visqueen, sealing up doors and all sorts of different things. Use it as a tarp. If you don't have your tarp or you need another tarp, same thing. Cut off a piece of that, use it as a tarp. So Visqueen is also great to have. And then vinegar and bleach, and both of these, vinegar basically could be used as a cleaning supply, cooking. I mean, a lot of different uses for vinegar. Bleach, the same thing, disinfectant for your water. A lot of different things with bleach. And then coffee filters is another one I've got on this one. I'm trying to get through these so I'm not here all night long bugging you guys, but coffee filters is another good one. It's same sort of on the same lines as all of these first three right here, the bandanas, the nylons, and the coffee filters, but you can use them to store things in. You could use them to filter water, get the sediment, pre-filter your water. A lot of different things that a coffee filter could be good for. And we all, probably 99% of us, all have coffee filters sitting around the house. Next here, we've got Morton salt and baking soda. Again, two things that just have a whole lot of different purposes when it comes to preparedness, especially the salt. Salt is, could be for preserving things. It makes things taste better. Salt has just a massive long shelf life. Baking soda can keep things fresh, and a lot of different uses for baking soda as well when it comes to from a preparedness perspective. And again, This is one of those things that you don't really necessarily think of baking soda as a preparedness supply, but it absolutely is. And, salt, kind of the same thing. I mean, us preppers think of salt and sugar and honey and things like that as prepping supplies. So that is. But the next one is clothespins. And as I get older, I remember my grandpa back in the day used to run after us grandkids and stick clothespins on our noses. So as we all get older, we have that to look forward to. But honestly, clothespins can be used for a number of different things in conjunction with a lot of these other prepping supplies that we have, like the Visqueen, the Mylar bags. A lot of different things we can hang. We can use it for, hanging up shelter. Maybe we need to get something hooked up in a spot until we have time to tie it off. And then we can use it for that. I mean, a lot of different uses for these right here. I mean, granted, you have the other clips and different types of things, but why not, have some just regular old clothes hangers and just hanging clothes, right? Because in a grid down situation, you've got to wash your own clothes, and that sort of goes into the totes and things that the 5-gallon buckets, maybe the things that people were talking about in the chat. That goes into the same type of thing. So you need those clothespins to actually hang that stuff because your dryer's not going to be working. Reynolds wrap here is also a good one. And this is sort of a smaller scale of the Visqueen type thing where you could seal certain things up. It could be a window. It wouldn't work. It doesn't have the thickness and it doesn't have the strength that large plastic sheeting would. But it would work in a pinch, covering things up, preserving things, making sure without refrigeration, you want to make sure that there's the least amount of air getting to stuff as possible. So that if you didn't have the Ziploc bags or things like that, along the same lines of this that I don't have on here is tinfoil as well. Same type of thing. A lot of different uses for tinfoil in here. One of the comments here in the chat. My uncle stole my nose when I was a kid. Never got it back. Yeah. My grandpa was a little bit mean. He would chase us around and clamp just angrily too. Not just being funny. He just snap. He got you. And he loved every second of it. All right, trash cans, plastic and aluminum. Aluminum trash cans, you got the Faraday cage aspect of it. Cardboard boxes, which is another thing that I don't have on this list. Like I said, there's just hundreds of these things. But you get a cardboard box and you can seal that up a little bit. You've got yourself a DIY Faraday cage. The plastic totes can be used for rain catchment. They can be used for washing. A lot of different uses for these different types of trash bags. Even your kitchen trash bag. Now, our trash can, if you've got a plastic one in the kitchen or in the garage. I don't know. I'd have to clean it out pretty well before I used it as water catchment. But at the same time, if I was really thirsty, I wouldn't really care much. It's just trash. Frank said tinfoil is also good for hats. Yep, that's true. We all and us preppers, we all need to have our tinfoil hats. Lisa especially, we got a couple extra rolls here at the house for Lisa because whenever she starts talking about aliens and stuff, she can't even mention that stuff without putting a hat on first because she's afraid they're gonna read her mind and know that she's giving away the secrets. All right, so Mylar blankets, and this, a lot of these that I've been talking about sort of have the same type of principle, same thing as a tarp. Even that Visqueen that I was talking about, the plastic sheeting. But these little cheap Mylar blankets, they're only like $1 a piece. I've got, I can't reach it right now, but I've got a whole drawer full. I've probably got 30 or 40 of them just sitting there. I don't ever use them, but in a situation, say you've got some duct tape, or maybe when I do that Flex Seal video, I will Flex Seal 3 or 4 Mylar blankets together and try to do some sort of shelter out of that. See how that goes. But the Mylar blankets are just good to have for a you just never know when something like that might come in handy. I think for the main purpose that we think of with Mylar blankets, not so much. I mean, you're going to get 1 or 2 degrees difference. I guess if you're in a survival situation and that's what you've got, that's what you've got. But as a prepper, we shouldn't be in a survival situation where that's the only option that we have. Now, it's great to have it, maybe as a little bit extra, but you could even make a pillow or something out of it. Say you've got one in your bug out bag, you could figure out a way to tape that closed, to stuff it with leaves, things like that. You can make a pillow out of it. So just something cool to have. You just never know what it's going to be useful for. All right, so the last one I've got here on this list is a few different things. And this is I'll start from the bottom here. I've already talked about the tarp a little bit. I've gone through these. There's a few different options that can be used for the same thing. I will say nothing beats a good quality tarp, though. It's got the grommets on it. It's going to be high quality. It's going to be meant to be a good high quality one anyway, is meant to be stretched. It's going to be reinforced around the corners, all of those things that you want from a really good high quality tarp. So don't skimp on the tarp, I don't think, but know the other options of the things you have. A tarp is one of those things. It could be used the same way that I talked about the trash bag earlier. Rain poncho, you could be used to carry stuff, a lot of different things you can do with that. Baby wipes is another one. Could be used for cleaning up, could be used for cleaning up the kitchen, could be used for cleaning you up. It could be, disinfectant, all sorts of different things that baby wipes can be used for. And it's going to be a lot better. I mean, paper towels are good too, but there are certain situations where those baby wipes are going to be better to use, or more functional, I suppose, than just a paper towel. You get a paper towel wet, and it's, you have to go that route. With some baby wipes, you got a few different options. The fixed blade knife, the multi-tool, the axe, all the tools, basically. These are great to have. With a fixed blade knife, you can do so many different things. I'm not even going to list them all here. As far as all the things, the bushcraft type things you can do, the things around the house, even if you needed to just use it as a screwdriver, say you can't find your multi-tool. There's just a lot you can do with a good quality fixed blade knife. Self-defense, all of those things. And that goes for the hatchet as well, and the multi-tool. I figured I was doing a thing about multi-tools, tools that have multi-purposes. You got to throw a multi-tool in there, right? So multi-tool, self-explanatory a little bit. It's a toolbox in your pocket, basically. So, and then up top here, I've got a couple of things. Corks, which are, good for a lot of different things, whether, sealing things shut, that you can be used as a bobber for fishing. Same thing with the bobby pins right there. You can use them to make a fish hook, something like that. I'm looking on here. I forgot to put pop cans and water bottles, soda, the little water bottles on here too. But speaking of fishing stuff, you can use little water bottles. You can use the tin cans, the top of a tin can, to make a fish hook. Dental floss on here to make some fishing line. So that little kit right there is basically a makeshift cross your fingers fishing kit right there. Good luck trying to catch anything with that, but who knows? But water bottles, there's a trick you can do, and I haven't tried this yet. I want to, but you cut off the bottom of one of these plastic water bottles. You put it inside a little bit, and you can actually use that as sort of a survival still. I want to try so the water condenses and then goes up the sides and back down into that bottom portion of it. You just roll it in a little bit so it goes in there. I want to try this just for the fact to see how much water you can actually get from something like this. So if you stick it out in it all day long, are you talking an ounce of water? Are you talking a half an ounce of water? I'm just curious about that, because I don't think, unless it's really humid and really sunny, you're going to get a whole lot of water. The last one I wanted to talk about here is this potassium permanganate. And this is one, I brought this up intentionally because this is one I catch a whole lot of heat about. Anytime I did a video a little while back about starting a fire with potassium permanganate. And people just, anytime I talk about this stuff, they're like, all right, yeah, like we're going to be carrying this around in our bug out bags. I do. I have a small vial of it in my bug out bag because it's not just for starting fires. To start a fire, you need this as well as, I forget what the chemical is called. You can use antifreeze, brake fluid. I can't remember what exactly it is in those two things. But you can use those two things to get a fire started. And I showed it in that video. In an SHTF situation, especially if you're in a suburban area or even a rural area, you're in a bug out situation with your bug out bag. There's a decent chance that you might run across an abandoned car. And in that abandoned car, you may be able to get some brake fluid. Now, granted, we should have our lighters, we should have our ferro rods, we should have, whatever sort of fire starting material we have, whether it's the stuff you buy. I've got some wet fire, which is basically a little wax thing. You take your ferro rod and strike it on there, it lights up real quick. You get Vaseline, cotton balls, all that stuff. But in a pinch, this will work for starting fires. But this is not the only reason that I have this in my bug out bag. And this article right here, and I don't have this link to it right here, but look it up. I'll make sure and leave the link after the show, and I'll leave it in the show notes for those of you listening to the podcast after this is live. But you can use it to, I don't know about purifying water, but it does kill bacteria, algae, viruses, fungi within an hour. And you use a smaller portion. Like with starting a fire, you use straight up, it's like 50-50 mixture of brake fluid and potassium permanganate. This is quite a bit less that you would need to purify water. Treating well water, but medical uses. It also is a disinfectant. So there's 3 different uses for this right here that, to me, the weight, the very little weight that it takes to carry something like this, and I probably have a little vial of a couple ounces, enough to put together and get one fire started, basically. But because it's got so many different purposes, it's sort of a why not, and it weighs so little, it's sort of a why not thing. Frank said here, do you have a list with links for some of these elements? I will, for some of the, I might probably put together, Jay Benays, I can't talk. I will probably put together an article, and I will link to some of this stuff. I will link to this one right here, and I will, some of the other things I'm going to do. Like I said, I'm going to do a video on the Flex Seal thing, so I'll make sure I let everybody know that. But if you have anything you want me to link to, Frank, or anybody else, make sure and put those in there. But yeah, I will do that, because this is one of those fun things that as preppers, we sort of like to geek out about, because it's, something that we can always, even though I did like 30 of them here, there's probably 300 more that we can think of. I could probably go through my basement right here and look at 50 different things and come up with, 150 different uses for all of that stuff. So just kind of fun. These are kind of those fun type of topics in preparedness, where it's not all the doom and gloom stuff, but it's those things that most of them you probably already know, but there's always a few things that you didn't really think about, and a few things that you're like, hey, yeah, you know what, that's a good idea. And maybe in some sort of disaster situation, SHTF situation, bug out situation, whatever it is, maybe that stuff, because you've got it in your head and you've thought about these things, maybe it does come to mind. So the average person walking by a pop can or a water bottle isn't going to give it a second thought. But as with our prepper brains, we're looking at this stuff and thinking of it completely different. I do it all the time with all the different stuff I do. I think of things back, I think about 15, 20 years ago, the way I used to think about things. And these days, everything is from where I'm driving, who's around me, all of that stuff. I'm thinking from a preparedness perspective. I've got my prepper brain on, thinking about all of these different things. So with that, if anybody's got any comments or anything like that before we get out of here, any other suggestions in there? I know you guys probably put some comments in there and I didn't get to them. But I will try to get to a couple here before we get out of here. Frank said, yeah, knowledge weighs nothing. Absolutely. And that's one of the coolest things about preparedness too, is there's so many different supplies and things that we need, but when money gets tight, it doesn't mean you have to stop. And honestly, the knowledge and the skills and the knowing what to do in certain situations is probably going to get you a lot further than a lot of the supplies themselves. Or it's going to be you're going to need it as a complement to those supplies to get you through different situations. So a lot of you guys are talking about alternatives and wind energy and stuff. I don't know exactly what you're talking about, so I'm not going to even attempt to jump into that conversation. But think outside the box. That's outside the box. Yeah. But it is very true when you're talking about preparedness. You do have to think outside the box, and that's what preparedness really is, right? Because our daily lives are fantastic. We've got life better than we ever have in the history of the world, especially here in the United States recently. But we're preparing for when life is outside the box, right? when things go to complete crap and we've got to figure out how to do things. So if you're not thinking outside the box, you're going to be one of those people, sort of like I talked about in an SHTF situation or a Civil War situation. You're going to be one of those people that are thinking about where they're going to get stuff because they don't have the mental capacity, they don't have the mental tools to think outside of the box with a lot of this stuff. And that's one of those things about that I was talking about, that comment on the poll I did. People that live in cities, and again, I'm not bagging on everyone that lives in a city, but a majority of people that live in cities do so because everything is right there for them. Everything's within distance here and there. That's also why they all vote Democrat too, because the bigger the government, the more support they get. But they don't really, when things break down, that's when things start to fall apart for them and their world just falls apart and they don't know what to do when they can't stop by the 7-Eleven, when they can't stop by the grocery store every night on their way home from work. They've got 3 days worth of food in their house and that's it. That's the type of out of the box. So thank you, Creative Redundancy. That's the type of out of the box thinking we preppers have to do. And that's why I think that prepping in general is outside of the box. Take America's back said, yeah, get books before they burn them all, and free PDFs. Yeah. Free PDFs is, a fantastic, is really a good idea. And I'm starting to I've got a locals group. If anybody wants to join, go to locals.com and it's Survivalist Prepper. And I'm just starting that group up over there. I've also got the Facebook group that a couple of people are in here tonight, but that's for members of the Bug Out Location. You can become a member of the Bug Out Location over at thebugOutLocation.com. For a monthly membership, yearly membership, or lifetime, and then you can get into that Facebook group. But the locals group is like $2 a month, and I'm going to start putting survival files and things like that over there. I'm also going to add I've got all my podcast episodes from the very first one, and I'm going to add all of those to that locals group. I've got 300 and some podcasts, so it may take me some time, but I am going to add all of those there. But survival files are those, even if it's digital, just those copies of things when the internet is down and right now it's easy for us to remember a lot of this stuff because if we draw a blank or something, we just go to the internet and we refresh our memory, right? We're like, I've got this, I remember this now. In a survival situation, in a grid down situation where the internet is not available, we're not going to have that option right there. So having these files readily available is a good idea. As well as maybe we know this stuff, but maybe there's family members that don't quite know the stuff the way that we do. We haven't quite got them to that level. Jesse said print them as well. Yeah. But we haven't quite got them to that level. So if something does happen and we are separated, and they have either the printed copies or a flash drive, and they have the ability that's the problem with flash drive. You have to have the ability to actually power on a tablet or a phone or something. Maybe an SD card with a phone. phones these days, maybe that wouldn't even work. So you need a way to get that information off that little flash drive is my whole point with this. So print them is a very good idea. But those people that don't take preparedness, like take it as seriously as we take it and understand all the things like we do, those survival files and have them a little bit organized in a preparedness binder could be the difference between them doing something insanely stupid or getting something figured out and impressing the hell out of you once you do finally make it back and get everybody back together. So at least, have them, let them know where everything is and all of that. But for us, especially as we get older, I know my memory sucks. And, trying to tie it, over the winter, it seems like every year, once every other year or so, I have to reteach myself how to tie a hook onto the end of fish line. It's 30 seconds worth of, oh yeah, okay, now I've got it. But in a survival situation, you're going to be sitting there for half an hour going, is it tucked under? Is it tucked over? Same thing with tying, putting up shelter and things like that. The less you practice that stuff, the easier it is to forget it. And if you have these survival files, it's not that huge of a deal. So, yeah, very well said, Jesse. Thank you. Yeah, have a lot of these files and have them printed up. I do have a lot of them in the Facebook group. I've got a lot more that I'm going to upload as well. And as well as on the locals page that I have set up, which is going to be a great group here eventually. We're just kind of building it right now, but I guarantee you in a few months from now, it's going to be an awesome group. Going to do live streams over there exclusively for members and all that stuff. But what I'm doing is transferring some of the files that I have on the Facebook group, putting them over on locals. And as I add to the Facebook group, I'm going to put them on locals as well. So just going to create a big compilation of stuff and everybody in the group can download them, do with them what you want, print them off, do what you need to. But yeah. At any rate, I think I am done tonight, everyone. I appreciate you all joining in tonight. A lot of cool people here in the chat. A lot of great stuff from the comments and everything. Appreciate you all joining in. Everyone in the Facebook group. Hopefully this went well. This is the first week I'm doing it in the Facebook group. So if it goes well, I will continue to put this in the private Facebook group for members of the Bug Out location. These Thursday shows, I am also going to be doing live shows on other days of the week, but these Thursday shows are going to be on Rumble. They're going to be on YouTube. They're going to be in that Facebook group and Twitter as well for that one or two people on Twitter watching. Local Prepper was probably one of the one person on Twitter that watched the show. But and then after that, I put this out as an audio podcast the day after or 2 days after. So it's all over the place. But check out that locals group. Check out the Bug Out location. If you're in the market for some long-term food storage, I've also got the shtfshop.com. We sell legacy food storage products. If that's something that you do want to maybe get a month or two's worth or whatever you want, get a hold of me. The prices listed there are retail prices. Get a hold of me and we can, usually I reserve the wholesale prices for members of the Bug Out location, but I can get you... we can work something out, and I'll make sure you guys get the best deal possible. With the long-term food storage, I say this all the time, don't put all your food storage in long-term food storage, but it is great for that bulk stuff, that set it and forget it. Just grab a little bit, put it aside. You don't have to worry about it expiring. All you got to do is store it properly, and you're good to go. So Frank in the chat, one last comment from Frank, and then I'm going to get out of here. Said, blessings, Dale. You did good from what I heard, even though I joined late. Great. I appreciate it. I'll take that as a compliment, regardless, even if I didn't. I'm just going to go with the fact that I did. So appreciate that, Frank. At any rate, everyone, I am going to get out of here. I'm going to let you guys all get out of here. Appreciate you all joining in. I will probably do another poll like this. I'm going to try to get Local Prepper on next week in the show. It could possibly be the week after that. We did a show a couple weeks back, and he's just a lot of fun to talk to, really knowledgeable guy. So that will be coming up, but I probably am going to do a poll and see, pick your guys' brain again. I like getting these ideas from you guys and talk about what you actually want to talk about rather than me just sort of pulling a rabbit out of the hat and seeing what happens. So, because I've been doing this so long, I've basically talked about everything in preparedness. So with that, take care and prepare, everyone. We will talk to you all later.